I'm sorry, Tony, but I'm the star of this movie. So am I.
Hey guys, I'm in this movie too!
What is up, everybody? RandomRandomMan here. Long time no movie review, especially in this familiar setup. I've recently just finished my first year of college, so I took some time to wind down. Also, apologies for the late review on this movie in particular, but nonetheless, I've decided to begin my summer break by seeing and reviewing the highly anticipated Captain America: Civil War, which stars a huge ensemble cast and is directed by Anthony and Joe Russo. By the way, there will be no spoilers in this review. You're all safe as I get into the plot, which is loosely based on the Marvel Civil War storyline and follows the Avengers as they are put under scrutiny from the international community for being seen as destructive and dangerous for the actions they have committed in prior MCU movies. With the advent of the Sokovia Accords wanting to keep the Avengers in check, this has divided this super team, as Captain America, played by Chris Evans, does not feel that the Avengers should be kept in check, yet Iron Man, played by Robert Downey Jr., feels that the Avengers should be kept in check. Naturally, a civil war brews between this team as lots of emotions reign supreme throughout this entire conflict. Going into this movie, I of course was very excited. I am a huge fan of the MCU movies, and if you're wondering whose team I was on before seeing this film, this sure answers the question. I was Team Cap all the way prior to viewing this film. But I was also excited to see where the movie would go narrative-wise, as we have seen lots of storylines being showcased in this franchise too. The Russo brothers also returned to direct this film, as they have previously brought us the excellent Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and I wanted to see what these two would be involved in next, and this is our answer. How was it? Let's run down the whole thing. Now, seeing how this is a huge ensemble cast being showcased in this film, I am actually going to have to read off the list of cast members involved in this movie, as I want to give credit where credit is due. Very quickly, of course. I'll try my best. Chris Evans is Captain America. He really impressed me in every MCU movie I've seen him in to date, and by this point in the series, he's really the perfect Captain America. Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. It goes without saying that he's the perfect guy to play this character. I love the camaraderie between him and Cap, and the conflicting ideologies that these two men have really are nail-biters to see on screen. We also have Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. Lovely, lovely actress. She really holds her own in the action sequences, and she has some depth here too. Sebastian Stan as the Winter Soldier. He has incredible depth in this movie too, but also is a bona fide badass in this film. More so than even in the movie he has his own title in, The Winter Soldier. We also have Anthony Mackie as Falcon. A lot more development gotten out of this guy. He really shows off how awesome this character really is. Next up, Don Cheadle as War Machine. Always a delight to see him. Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye. Very nice to see him back here. We have Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther. This is one of the new additions to the film, and I really am now a new fan of Black Panther. Really knew little about this character at first, but I loved his action sequences. He was so visceral. He was intense. You got why this character did and felt what he was feeling throughout this film, and just really makes me excited to see his solo movie very, very soon. Next up, we have Paul Bettany as Vision, returning from Age of Ultron. His mannerisms and just the look he has makes him really feel very convincing as the character, and Paul Bettany is just a versatile actor too. Next up, Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch. Incredibly gorgeous in my eyes, but she has the best power set of these heroes, in my opinion, as just I loved her character, and I liked what she brought to the table here too. Paul Rudd is Ant-Man. He comes back after his own movie from last year, and he has not lost 1 ounce of his charisma and just his hilarious nature. Next, Emily Van Camp as Sharon Carter. A minor role here, but a pivotal one in what happens during the film in some instances. Next, here's a big one. Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Now, from all the praise I was hearing about Tom Holland's performance prior to seeing this film, at first I thought it was just everyone being very happy to finally see Spider-Man in the MCU, but I have to agree, this is a very good performance. They definitely skewed a lot younger with this version of Spider-Man. In fact, there's even a joke of how young Aunt May is in this movie, as she's played by Marissa Tomei, lovely actress as well, but the action sequences involved with him just make him really worthwhile. I'm really excited to see what happens in his solo movie very, very soon too, like with Black Panther. Spider-Man, you get a big old thumbs up from me, my friend. There's definitely more people to run down here, such as William Hurt as General Ross. Nice to see him back again after sitting out of the MCU for a long time. But overall, what do I have to say about this cast? Just simply phenomenal. I think even with the absence of Thor and Hulk, this is probably the best I have seen the Avengers and the rest of the cast in the MCU ever in this franchise. Story-wise, this is where I get into why I love this film. This movie really shows a lot of payoff with what we have gotten up to with all the other MCU movies prior to this one, including The Winter Soldier and Age of Ultron in particular, because we see what these characters really are about and how they feel. This also goes into the ideologies that are at display here, because there are such a lot of reasons why you want to be on one side or the other. Again, going in, I was Team Cap all the way, but by the end of the movie, I was like, wow, I did not know whose side I was really on. Team Iron Man made a good case for themselves, but also Team Cap made good cases for themselves. It's really nice to see how you don't know which side you're really on, even if you personally have a preference to who is on which team. I think that that's a great sight to see, and it goes with how the writing is really immaculate. The movie even tells its cohesive narrative through and through, even at 2.5 hours. Now, this movie is the longest MCU film to date, and unlike some other movies that really don't take advantage of their running time, I feel that this movie needed to be 2.5 hours long. Otherwise, we wouldn't have seen all the things that happened in this movie that really needed to be seen to be believed, and to have a lot of your investment be paid off. That's what I love to see. And it also goes without saying that it leads into some of the best action I've ever seen, not just in the MCU, but in any comic book / superhero movie ever. The action in this movie continues the very gritty and the very visceral nature that The Winter Soldier carried with how those action sequences are directed. The Russo brothers did another simply phenomenal job just pulling off what can be done. From the opening action sequence to the fight at the airport, there is just a lot to be seen with how powers are displayed, with the fight choreography. Hand-to-hand combat in particular really feels brutal, but also with how everything gets drawn out at its pacing. Again, 2.5 hours, but I didn't mind the running time in the slightest. I'll mention the airport scene very quickly. I'll agree with what everyone is saying. This is one of the best fights I've ever seen in a superhero or comic book movie. I don't know about the very best. I'll have to replay it a couple of times to see for myself, but what is shown in this very extensive sequence is just every comic book fan's dream. Oh, and by the way, I did choose to see this movie in 3D, and while it isn't essential to see the movie in the format to get the most enjoyment out of it, certain action sequences really do make the effects pop. It is so awesome to see what is really shown with this cast, what they can do, what bright wonders. I'm just at a loss for words. It was just so stunning to see. And it also leads up to the end finale, which for MCU standards went dark. It went super grim by some stretch of that imagination, as I personally didn't mind that. I love the development that went into it, but it also made this movie feel really impactful, very powerful by the end, even after all of the things that went on throughout this film. You feel for these characters. You really feel like you want to be with them. You want to be on their side. You want to be on their support team. It's a lot to say when everything is said and done. Just the chemistry, just the acting, everyone in general just makes it feel so convincing that this movie feels really complete by its end, even though we have more of these movies to go. That's what I love to see in not only a sequel, but in an all-encompassing standalone film. It also goes into how this movie could have easily just come off as being Avengers 2.5, which it isn't. It's still very much a Captain America movie in its own right. It makes it a very great strength and a bit of a weakness for this movie. I was watching this movie and utterly loving it throughout, but I do have some minor issues that have to be addressed. I was digging this movie throughout once again, but I couldn't help but feel that in the back of my mind something was bothering me at moments that made it feel like this movie wasn't perfect in my eyes. And that sometimes has to do with what is done in certain instances. Very minor, of course, just nitpicks in sheer recollection by now, but also with the villain. Now, sad to say, but I think the villain adds on to the lackluster roster of the MCU villains that we have gotten up until this point. However, I'll say that Zemo, played by Daniel Bruhl, I really like this actor. He's not a bad villain. There are definitely a lot of attributes to him that make him compelling, but there were some instances where I felt that more could have been just shown out of him. I wanted to see more of why his motivations are made to begin with, because his motivations are clear, but I just wanted a little bit more stretched out to show why this character really was a threat, even with the Avengers turning on each other. That's what makes the best villains in any type of movie, when you can read in between the lines of every characteristic that is attributed with the character. But that goes without saying that the rest of this movie is almost perfect in my eyes. Other than those minor issues I have in between some of the narrative threads with the villain and some other things that I won't mention. But this movie is as close to being as perfect as I could possibly ask for. Not just by MCU standards, but with this entire genre of films in this medium. My final thoughts on this movie are that it is provocatively written, it is intense, and it is just visually visceral, exhilarating, all the things that have to be done with a movie like this, and all the more exciting too. The movie balances itself so well with the superb acting, the excellent chemistry between all the characters, the gorgeous visuals, the editing, the technical merits are just near perfect, but also with how this movie comes together in being the MCU's finest in what we've seen throughout this franchise ever since it began in 2008 with the first Iron Man movie. Now, I did say last year that Avengers Age of Ultron was my favorite MCU movie to date, but now looking back, I still really enjoy that and the first Avengers film, but that's basically what I feel. It is a fun time to see both of those films, but I love it when I get more substance out of these movies, just like with the first Iron Man, Captain America the Winter Soldier, and even Guardians of the Galaxy with its fun factor. All three of those movies I feel are mixed in here with Captain America Civil War to make myself get a lot of enjoyment and depth with what went on in the story. I love it when movies get me absorbed like this, and for a comic book / superhero movie, it's among the best, and just as a film in general, it is simply great. Go see this movie if you haven't already. I feel like I'm one of the last people to even see this movie, but of course, you're probably going to end up seeing it multiple more times anyway. I love this film once again. I highly recommend it, and it is so far one of my favorite movies of 2016, and as of right now, my favorite MCU movie to date. My final verdict for Captain America Civil War is 4.5 out of 5 stars. Thank you all, as always, for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment on what you thought of Captain America Civil War, subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.